welcome back to Taylor and Momo. I'm Momo.
My name's Taylor, and yes, I know I'm wearing the same shirt as in the last video. We're trying to film multiple videos at once, so that way we aren't as far behind as before. And I know we've tried to do this before and failed, so do not judge our lack of scientific theory. But yes, today we're going to talk about my epilepsy journey for those that want to learn about epilepsy, because July is Disability Pride Month for those that do not know. Alright, so I got diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 16, but my first seizure was when I was 5 from the RSV virus, and I was considered legally dead for 5 minutes. And then I went 11 years without a seizure, without being on any medication or anything. So they don't consider the RSV seizure to be an epileptic seizure. They call it what's called a febrile seizure, which kids under 6 are eligible for. But they do still test me for like RSV the second I go into the hospital for a seizure, just to know like how bad they have to like worry. And then, so when I was 16, I got my first seizure, and they didn't know really what to do. I still remember the last thing I saw before that happened. I was watching like the Golden Globes like red carpet on TV while I was like typing a paper and studying for my permit test, and I saw like Ty Burrell getting interviewed in this like sparkly suit, and then like next thing I knew, I woke up to like EMTs in my room, and I was like freaking out. Anyway, though, but yeah, so had my first seizure when I was 16, the week before I was supposed to take my permit test, and they like were like kind of shocked. And like at 16, they expected to be because like you either drank or like did drugs or something, and so they like had my parents walk out of the room, and like they were like, did you drink or do drugs? And I was like, I'm 16 and dance 8 to 16 hours a day, I don't have time for that. And so they obviously did like a drug and alcohol test just to make sure, and when it came back negative, they were like, okay. So then they started testing for everything else and learned I had epilepsy. And so then they called my pediatrician called his former college professor, who happened to be the head of pediatric neurology at the hospital, and had him do him a favor and come. And that's how I got literally the best neurologist in the country. He's now retired, so if anybody's looking for a pediatric neurologist, I'm sorry, he's now retired. And so yeah, he was the best neurologist in the country and the second best in the world, and he was great. I loved him. We have his cell phone number now, and like I update him all the time on what I'm doing. But yeah, and so he came, and I was like so terrified that like my whole life was gonna be different, but pretty much the only thing that really changed was that I was gonna have to wait a while to get my permit. And I was gonna have to take medicine, and I remember my parents not wanting me to have to take medicine, and him telling them that because my type of epilepsy was rare. At the time we didn't know what type of epilepsy I had, we just knew the type of seizures I had, but because the type of seizures I had were like super dangerous, that like if I didn't take seizure meds, that like I'd probably be like dead within a month. And then we learned the type of epilepsy I had, and he was like, yeah, definitely she'd be like dead in a month if I didn't put her on medicine. So basically the type of epilepsy I have is really rare. It's recessive genetic, and the hot spot is where my frontal lobe and left temporal lobe meet. And basically brain cells come in groups of 4. So basically what happens is 3 of my brain cells are adult sized. They're the size of an adult brain cell, so they're normal. 1 of my brain cells is the size of a kid's brain cell. So like when it's in an adult body, because at 16 you hit puberty, blah blah blah, you know, all that happens. When it's in an adult body, basically it's like the size of a bacteria cell. So what was happening was my neurons were mistaking for a bacteria cell, but the brain cells in its group knew it was supposed to be there. So basically what was happening was the brain cells were in its group were surrounding it, trying to protect it and get it to grow, while my neurons were aiming at it. Like, imagine the pirates in Peter Pan, like, shooting cannons. That's what the neurons were doing. They, like, fire, and that's what they're still doing. They're firing at it, and basically a seizure happens when either the neurons hit an electrical surge, the neurons hit one of those 3 brain cells, or the neurons hit the little brain cell that's too small. So, and the way one of those 3 events can happen is if I don't take my meds when I'm supposed to, I am stressed out, I don't get enough sleep, I'm sick, I get overheated, I'm not hydrated enough, I have an allergic reaction to medications, which we didn't know how many medications I was allergic to or that even had allergic reactions till I got epilepsy. And like, or like I'm on my period. So like there's like a bunch of things that can make it happen. Or if I hit my head. But
Don't do that.
but yeah, and so basically you always have to be careful, and I'm one of the people who doesn't know when they're gonna have a seizure, which happens to very few. It happens to like a small percentage of epileptics. They can't tell. Like, so basically, a warning before a seizure is known as an aura, and I don't get those. Like, I remember the second time I had a seizure, they had an intern in the ambulance who now is a full-on EMT paramedic, and I always have her. Like, she just, whenever I have a seizure at my house, she just barges right in. She's like, okay, I know where everything is. And like, so yeah, she's great. But like, I remember it was like, she was an intern, and she was going through the checklist with me of all the different types of auras, and I said like, no, and so that's how they knew I didn't get auras before a seizure. And so basically I was like, so what do I do? And they're like, oh, you're doomed. And they gave me a checklist, and they were like, but if you ever feel one of these, they're like, this is what you have to do. And basically I would have to lay face down, because when I was like younger, I would aspirate into my lungs a lot easier than I do now. So like I would have to so most people, you would lay on their side, but I could still aspirate laying on my side, so they would have to put me face down with my head like this, so that way I could still breathe, but like the throw up would come out. So now I don't aspirate as easily, which is good, so they can put me on my side like a normal person. But yeah, and so yeah, I've had multiple seizures, obviously, but I've gotten better at not having them. Like, I've hit 3 years with no seizure finally, and
round of applause, everybody.
I have a rescue med, which before I could never have a rescue med for my type of seizure, but now they have one. I have Nasolan, and I bring it with me everywhere. I have one box at my parents' house, and then I have a box that just stays in my backpack and goes with me everywhere. And me and my neurologist, because I work so much with kids, we are in the process talking about RNS and VNS, because the RNS, for those that don't know, it's a device that goes in your brain, and it records the seizure activity, and just like whenever a seizure happens, it zaps the seizure, and just like records the activity and let your neurologist know, like, hey, this is what happened. But you can also send the information to your physician, or like if you're in a foreign country and they're like, oh no, this person's having a seizure, what do we do? It like lets them know like your type of seizure and the activity that's going on in your brain. And then the VNS before, only like there was only the magnet option that swiped, like the VNS was in your heart or by your heart, and like it went up your vagal nerve, but it required a magnet, so the person had to be somewhat aware and had to swipe it themselves, or had to have somebody with them to swipe. But now they have a couple new models, and one of the new models me and my neurologist are talking about is, it's nicknamed the athletic model, but it has an actual name that I can't remember right now. And basically it goes by your heart rate, which is what they determine when I'm in the hospital. Since I can't determine myself when I'm gonna have one and be able to like call the nurse, they put a heart monitor on me, and when my heart rate starts spiking really fast, that's how they know I'm gonna have a seizure. And basically that's what the athlete model does. It can tell when your heart rate starts going up out of nowhere, like more than you would when you are participating in a sport. It zaps you a little bit, plus giving you like the amount of zaps you need throughout the day. So, and if it zaps you by accident, it like doesn't harm you or anything. It's just like a little extra. So, yeah. So that's where we are right now. But yeah, Momo, how's it for you having an epileptic girlfriend?
So, since I started dating Taylor, I am now seizure aid certified. So, God forbid she does have a seizure, I know what to do now. I also had a friend in college who had like, what are they called?
PNEAs.
Yeah, PNEAs, like stress-induced seizures. So I learned a lot through that process too, and how to handle that. At first I was like, what the heck is happening? And then I realized, oh, she's having a seizure. Thankfully, since I've started dating Taylor, like, nothing has happened, and knock on wood, it stays that way. But if something were to happen, I know what to do. If I'm there, obviously. But she's really, really good at taking her meds on time. She has the alarms on, and if she's asleep when one of the alarms goes off, I'm like, Taylor, med time. So that helps her out a lot, right? So we have her med boxes, we have everything here, so we're prepared for all of it. But
what we're not prepared for is when CVS decides to delay giving
that's
me my
a whole
meds.
other thing, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
There's been moments where she hasn't had her meds.
Thanks to CVS. Everybody boycott CVS. Just a tip.
No shade on CVS, but what kind of shade on CVS? But because of that, like, she's had to take like samples. So in those moments, I've been like extra alert just to make sure. Like, I would like, if we were at her house, like, I knew her parents were around, so like I felt better. But like, if we're here and I'm alone with her, like, I would stay awake till she fell asleep, and then check on her. I don't know why I'm coughing so much. But I've learned a lot from her through all this, and learned about the different types of seizures, and learned about like her stressors, and kind of when she is stressed out, like, kind of like calm her down so we don't get to that point of having a seizure. And I think it was like last week, she was on the floor and I was like, babe, what's wrong? And she was like, you were having like back pain or something. So that's when I know, like, get her up and make sure she goes into the bed, because I don't want her on the floor just in case she had one. But she didn't, and we were all good. It was just, she was just in pain, right? But I think for me, I'm also joining a support group in the next month to help me learn more about how to best support her. And I think that'll be really helpful for me also to learn more about epilepsy and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and I honestly think that helps too. Like, I have complex partial, tonic clonic, and myoclonic seizures. So like you guys may notice in videos, like sometimes my eye might twitch, or like my jaw and neck might twitch, or my shoulders might do something funky, or I might get like it'll look like a chill up my spine, but like it's not.
And sometimes she twitches in her sleep, so I hold her and I'm like, it's okay, you're fine. Right.
But those are like the small seizures like people are supposed to get every day that the health insurance company is like.
At first I had no idea what was happening.
Okay, that means you have epilepsy. We're good.
I think the first night when it happened, I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, no. Those
and I was like, the next day I was like, what was that? And she was like, oh, those are myoclonic seizures.
Yeah, those are the ones that the hospital and the neurologists don't really care about, because those are the seizures that let the health insurance company know that you have epilepsy, because you're supposed to get them like every day.
Yeah.
Or at least like every other day if you're not getting them every day. It's the ones that are absence and above that the doctors and all of them care about. But yeah, so like some things like I do for like to interact with other people with epilepsy is I do epilepsy support groups for like with my campers and camp counselors in New York. I just joined an epilepsy support group here in Connecticut so I can like become friends with people who have epilepsy in Connecticut. And then I also work at a sleepaway summer camp up in upstate New York as well. And you know, it's a lot of fun, and I totally recommend if you have epilepsy, like at least try to join like a support group and all that. And then I also like go to therapy to be able to talk about my epilepsy and other things. Like individual therapy works wonders, because I didn't think about doing therapy until my neurologist made it mandatory. Because they have to make it mandatory at a certain point. It's like required by law. And you know, I kind of looked at him like, you're insane. And he goes, well, no,
trust me,
it's like state required. It's different for each state.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like,
so is it required here?
Yeah, so basically at 5 years in Connecticut they have to start looking for anxiety and depression and suicidal thoughts and all that. And basically I got anxiety at like, I think it was like right exactly at 5 years I got anxiety. And so he was like, oh, now you gotta go, let's go. And so yeah, so now it's required for me to like have therapy and all that. But like honestly, I think it was like honestly a good thing to do, because I didn't think you could get that from like I knew you could get anxiety from epilepsy, but I didn't think you could get PTSD from epilepsy. And my therapist was like, no, you can. It's called medical PTSD, because from being in the hospital so much. So
and also just in general having seizures, right?
Yeah, and he goes, because you've had seizures in front of people, like you fell down the stairs in college, like it's a lot. And so but
it's a lot not only for you but for the people who see it happen.
Yeah, like I know I've had a couple friends who have seen me have seizures in college, and like they literally had to go to the counseling center, and they told me like we had to go to the counseling center because it was rough on us.
Like I remember when my friend had seizures in college. Not to tell her story or anything, but like they were both in from the 2 times I remember when I was with her at least, they were both in very public areas on the campus where we went to school, and it was scary. It's very like, I don't want to say traumatizing, but kind of traumatizing, right? Like, especially because you know what's about to happen, and like, you know the sign of like, when she would like squeeze my hand, I'm like, okay, she's going down. We're going down. I knew how to handle it, but it was still scary for me. Like like 1 second the person's talking to me, and the next second they're on the ground, and you're like, how the hell did that happen? So I just remember the first time my friend had a seizure, like I was scared, but thankfully I was with people and they helped me out, and we dealt with it. But it's still not, to go back to Tay, like, it's also not easy for the people who see it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. What I think is kind of ironic is only my college friends have seen me have a seizure, and it's not even like all of my college friends, it's like a select few have seen me have one. So, like, my friends from Connecticut who say they're prepared if I were to ever have a seizure, I'm kind of like, I don't think you are, because you haven't seen me have one. You just know me since I've been diagnosed. And some of them have known me since before I've been diagnosed. So it's like, I don't think you're really all that prepared if I were to drop in front of you right now.
Oh, let's not do that.
But yeah. So anyway, that's my epilepsy journey. Right now we're on the part where we debate between surgery and stuff, and my mom is arguing with me about getting surgery.
And so am I.
Yeah, they're all arguing with me. Oh, and I have my license, but nobody's letting me drive. It's great. It's fun.
I let you drive.
Yeah, but you don't own my car.
That's
My mother and I have to share a car.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway, so yes, that's... And if anybody's in a similar situation, feel free to comment about how you handle that in your house.
Yeah, please help.
So yeah.
But yeah, also sorry we have not been recording for a while. I've been busy with work and
I have work in school.
So it's been a while. And now we're like back at my place, but we were back and forth between her place and my place for a while there. So we're back now. Officially.
So yeah.
We're gonna just throw a bunch of videos at y'all for this, right?
So yeah, anyway.
Catch up, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, am I talking too much?
Yeah.
I have PhD.
Anyway, that is my epilepsy journey. So like, comment, share, subscribe.
We love you. Thank you for watching.
And feel free to comment a fun fact you know about epilepsy.
Yeah.
Or anything you know about any disability, really, because it's Disability Pride Month. So.
Woo!
All right. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.